Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Falcon Focus podcast, our final edition here in 2018. And for the entire 30 minutes, we're going to be joined by the Director of Athletics, Dr. Rob Barnhill. My name is Matt Menzel, and again, we're live here on Facebook Live, archived on cuwfalcons.com. You can download the audio thanks to Podbean and listen via iTunes. Well, Dr. Rob Barnhill, thanks for joining us as we wrap up yet another, athletic year, 2018. I want to go back, though, and you were named the Director of Athletics back in the spring of 2001. How did that kind of come about?
There was a change in leadership at the time, and I received a really strange phone call from the secretary of the Vice President of Student Life. And at that time, I did not know who that was. And truth be told, I thought I was going to be fired. I panicked, and I said, I asked the secretary, and Miss Robin, I said, for my preparation, can you tell me, what the meeting's going to be about? And she said, no. I said, okay, great. I went home and I told my wife I'm being fired. And I didn't have any reason to think I should be fired, but I don't know this guy, and he's calling me in. So anyway, I go into a meeting, and he says, listen, we're having a change at the athletic director position, and you've had these experiences. We'd like for you to take it over in the interim. And I said, okay, I need to do a couple of things. I need to first talk to the head football coach because I was an assistant football coach at the time, and I need to talk to my wife. And both people signed off on it, and here we are some 17 years later.
So was being an AD, at least here at Concordia, at some point the goal?
I didn't know. I got into this business to be a football coach, and I still love football. I enjoyed coaching football. I got my doctorate degree kind of as an accident. It was a way for me to continue to keep coaching football as a second graduate assistantship. And the head coach at the time said, listen, you get this degree, you're going to open up all kinds of doors that you don't know exist. And I laughed it off at the time and didn't think anything of it, but it was true. Looking back on it, I'm happy that it happened. But at the time that you asked me if that was going to be my goal, I don't think so. I think football was where I wanted to go. But what I found is I'm probably better at this job than I was the other.
You talk about your experiences, though, maybe helping prepare you for this position. What were some of those experiences? How did you go about preparing to becoming the athletic director?
Well, first of all, I'd been in a lot of different places. We had, what's the rental truck company? U-Haul. We had them on speed dial there for a while. We were moving every 12 or 18 months. I was a graduate assistant, then I was a graduate assistant again, then I got an assistant job, and then another one, and another one, and another one, and they kept being better positions. So I started out my career as an assistant football coach, and then my first full-time job was actually as an assistant professor in sports management. So I started teaching sports administration classes, and so that, along with my education, was the foundational work for, I guess, what I do today on a day-to-day. But so a combination of being in a lot of different places, having the background in sports administration. I had been an assistant athletic director before. I'd done games management. I'd done some fundraising. I'd been in marketing. I'd been in recruiting. I'd been in coaching. So all the preparational things that you might look for in a job description, I had kind of done. But they were in bits and pieces here and there, all under the umbrella of being an assistant football coach.
You mentioned you have U-Haul on speed dial. How about a mentor? Did you have somebody that you could call at a moment's notice that, hey, anytime, especially when you first started off as the AD, when you ran into issues, you had ideas, you can kind of bounce it off of?
Well, we joke around my house. I have demons, right, in my head, so I spend a lot of time in conversation with those guys. But to be honest, no, I didn't, because you run in football circles, football coaches. Mm-hmm. Because I'd never been an athletic director, I didn't necessarily have those people I could reach out to. So it was a lot of trial and error. I tell my kids in my classes all the time, listen, what I'm teaching you is great, and it's good foundational stuff, but really until you get out there and start making mistakes, that's when you learn. And so it was a lot of trial and error and a lot of mistakes.
What I love is, we talked about this back in the spring too, though, is you walked into an athletic department that is nowhere near what it is today.
No.
Size-wise, too. It's 5 full-time employees at the time.
Yeah. back in the day, we could this was our staff meeting. You could fit them around one of these tables, and now we have a big room and we need more chairs. No, we've come a long way. I look back a lot of times when I'm walking through the field house, and I can't help think kind of nostalgically we did that and we did this and this wasn't here. I actually did it this morning. I was walking in looking out at the softball stadium like, what a great time to be here, and started thinking about the Catalyst building and the new press box and of course the softball stadium, and then the new scoreboards that we have on the ends for intramurals or basketball camps and stuff like that. And from where we were to where we are now is night and day. But let me be quick to say this: we're nowhere near where we need to be. And some people would say, "What? What do you mean?" Because if you look around us, facility-wise, we're third, fourth, fifth in our league. And if you look outside of our league to our peer institutions in the CCIW and the Midwest Conference, we're not where we need to be. That's not to say that we haven't been addressing them, because we have. I mean, the proof's in the pudding outside, but we still have a long way to go.
You mentioned, though, when you got the AD job, it was on an interim basis, or at least they called you the interim athletic director. So I don't know if maybe the first day in the office you envisioned all this, but at some point when you realized you were going to be here on a more permanent basis, did you kind of envision that, someday I want these facilities in place, I want to be able to bring in these type of athletics?
It would be easy to sit here today and say, yes, I had this grand scheme, right? But back then, our old television, our old telephone system, whenever the president's office would call you, the only thing that would show up would be 4 dashes. You couldn't see his numbers. So for the first 5 or 6, 7, 8, 10 years, when I'd see those 4 dashes, I thought I was being fired. So it was hard to plan for the future when you're always looking over your shoulder, yeah, right. So no, but again, I didn't know what I didn't know when I got into this job, and it was an interim position in the beginning. And the funny thing was, the 3 candidates were the head football coach, the head basketball coach, and me. So for me to end up with it was probably. Tonight they're doing the Buster Douglas underdog 42-1 story. They say that's the greatest upset in sports. I might have been the greatest upset was giving me this job. But I didn't know what I didn't know, and what I've learned over the time is that I have a capacity for vision, and more importantly, and I can't overstate this enough, the president has allowed us to do everything that we've done. Alumni come back and they say, "Oh man, look what you've done! You've done a great job." I always caution them, "Listen, hey, thanks, I appreciate it. I was sitting here when it happened." But the reality is, if you don't have senior administration support in this job at this level, you can't get it done. It's not like being at Alabama or Carolina or Duke, where you got donors on the street that'll fund whatever your mind thinks up. That doesn't exist at this level. So you have to have senior administrative people who are willing to support your ideas, and then you're charged with coming up with good ideas and executing them, showing them return on investment, which will allow you the opportunity to maybe have those dreams and sometimes bring them to fruition in reality.
One of the big changes outside of facilities and number of sports that are now offered is just number of full-time staff members and coaches. And I guess, first of all, how important is that to have full-time now coaches and staff members? But then also, does that put more pressure now on the coaches to get results? Not to say there wasn't pressure there before to win and lose, but is there more pressure now that you have these coaches that are full-time and focused on their sports?
I think it's paramount. Back in the day when we had part-time coaches, we had people scattered to the 4 winds, and having a department meeting was difficult. You never got to see the other coaches eye to eye for the most part, because they were driving in from off campus. And as the demand for top quality student athletes has grown, so too has the pressure to get them, and they've become harder and harder to get. So from just a recruitment standpoint alone, it's absolutely critical that we have these people on campus. And then, it's not just a recruitment thing, getting them here. It's also a development thing once they're here. And it's not just athletics. It's someone to talk to about life, someone to talk to about faith, someone to talk to about academics. It's a big job, and it's a 365 job. I mean, one of the questions I fielded from the CFO when I started talking about phasing in full-time assistant coaches, his question was, well, what do they do in the off season? And kind of chuckled. There is no off season at this level. It's constant recruitment. I mean, you recruit till you see the white of their eyes, and even then you don't know. So it's a year-round thing, and having someone here on a daily basis for the kids to go to is another touch point. And I believe if you go back and look at our retention numbers have gone up, and I believe it's attributed to that, not directly, right? There's a lot of things. It takes a community, but it is certainly helped having someone here with those types of touch points and engagements on a daily basis. So I believe it's absolutely critical. And to your point about raising the expectations as far as wins and losses, and we've always maintained here that our definition of athletic success is we're required to be in the top 3 in every sport, in every conference, every year. Well, that's a lofty goal, but we're doing it. And our coaches have embraced that. Concordia University, Wisconsin's not a big hire and fire place. People come and they stay, it speaks to the fact that it's a great place to work and a great community to be a part of. And being church affiliated and a faith-based, Christian-based institution, there's a lot of Christian care and concern and support for our coaches, but at the same time, this is a results-oriented business, and our coaches know that. But I think what you found is we've hired good people, and they've done a great job. And all you have to do is go back and look at our roster and the longevity of all the people that we've had. We haven't had a lot of turnover because they're all doing a really, really, really good job.
When we come back, we'll take a look at more of the changes here on this Concordia campus. It's Dr. Rob Barnhill has been in the AD seat as we continue here on this week's edition of the Falcon Focus podcast.
God never intended for us to live a comfortable life. He created us to go outside our comfort zones, to use our gifts and talents in the service of others, to live a you-first life in a me-first world. At Concordia University, it's our mission to prepare you for that path, so that you stand apart from the crowd and live a life that's actually uncommon. Concordia University, live uncommon.
Welcome back to the Falcon Focus podcast, and being joined by the Director of Athletics, Dr. Rob Barnhill, on our final edition here in 2018. We'll next be with you on Tuesday, the 8th of January, to begin our 2019 coverage here on the Falcon Focus podcast. And we were talking about some of the changes, and you look back and we were talking about a number of full-time employees, but how about from a facility standpoint? You started to touch base on this. Okay, you look at Thomasini Stadium and new press box, and perhaps in the future a new scoreboard. You have fitting field. You talked about the new practice facility, Capco Park. The list goes on and on. The softball stadium is going to be introduced coming up here in the spring. It's now completed, but will be utilized for the first time this spring. A lot of changes, and yet there still could be more in the future, certainly on your wish list.
Yeah, I mean, we've come a long way. Back in I won't remember the date, but in the middle 2000s, there was the Renewed by the Waters campaign, and phase 1 of the athletic outdoor renovations were part of that. And then the Capco partnership came up, and then the parking structure, and then the press box, and then the new stadium, and the new track. The turf was all part of that original Renewed by the Waters campaign. Then recently we've added Catalyst Park. We've added Catalyst Park, which is the new softball stadium. Catalyst Training Center, which is a new indoor facility. The Orthopedic Hospital of Wisconsin stepped up to help us with the new press box and fitting field for soccer and lacrosse. So we have done a lot of really neat things. We still have some shortcomings, however. Our indoor track facility is not regulation. The turn radius is too tight. It's not a legit 200-meter track. So on my desk is a folder or a stack of folders, and that's kind of the idea pile. Everything that we've done is at some point originated in one of those manila folders in that stack on my desk. And what happens is it's an idea, you put it in a folder, you work on it, you see it to fruition, then you move it over to the file cabinet. So right now I've got a stack this high of things that I'd like to see, and in one of those files is a new athletic facility. And not that we have the capacity today to do it, but if someone walked in today and said, Rob, here's $50 million, it won't take me a long time to spend it. I know what I want, right? I'd love to see a 200-meter track with a 60, 70-yard turf field inside of it with all the field and track amenities, with a viewing platform, new locker spaces. I'd like to see a weight room and fitness center for student athletes only, turn what we have now over to the students. Currently, our athletic offices, we've grown so much and so fast that we have 10 or 12 coaches that are underneath the Regents resident hall. I've got almost every office is double, some are triple occupied, so people are sitting on one another's laps to do the work in there. I need to build a 60 office suite. You know, we need a dedicated wrestling room. The field house has served us for so many years, but we need a basketball, volleyball competition arena. Those are the things you need, and you can do a lot if you have the money and the support. I know the administrative support's here for it. You know, the president and I share that vision, along with this is what we'd like to see. But to do that, there's a certain economic reality that you have to face, and right now we just don't have the resources to do it.
Are there any immediate concerns right now that, you know, maybe on a smaller scale, like, hey, we need to take care of this now or in the not too distant future? Yeah,
a couple of things that are on the front burner, if you will. We need a new scoreboard in football. That thing is just short of having Steve climb up there and hold a number plaque. You know, that was the first generations was somebody standing up there with a number. The second generation is what we have out there right now. That's still using old light bulbs that you can get in your bathroom. So we need to change that out. That's an immediate issue. We need to address the locker room situation on this campus, especially the varsity men's locker room. It's in the worst state of repair, I guess, disrepair of all of our locker rooms. The lockers that are in there, Tomasini used when he played here. So we need to address that. All of our competitors have. And so, you know, back in the day when I was coaching football, we didn't take recruits out to the football field, which seems crazy that you'd bring them to campus and not show them the football field. We did that intentionally. We didn't want them to see it because most of the middle schools they went to had better places to play than we did. So now kind of the same thing. We kind of tend to hide our locker room situation, but we do need to address that. It's easy to focus on maybe the negative aspect of that, but to me, I look at it as an opportunity and as a challenge. We've come so far. I remember the old weight room underneath Regents. All the bars were rusty, and I mean the weights are from the '60s. Our fitness center at the time had one treadmill and one stair stepper. Yeah, I mean it can happen, right? I mean it can happen. It just takes time, and I believe and I have faith. It'll happen.
What's amazing to me, too, you look at the number of programs, 32 teams here on campus. And, you know, one of the first sports I can remember you adding was men's and women's hockey.
Yeah.
Back to, 2005. How did that come about? Why was men's and women's hockey important to you to add to Concordia? I mean, especially at that time, there wasn't a ton of Division III programs, at least not in the immediate area.
I'm going to tell you something many people don't know. The main primer for us having hockey his name is Ty Barnhill. So when my son Ty started playing hockey, I grew up in North Carolina, right? It's funny, I was watching Miracle yesterday, a rerun, and I was watching it. And I remember when that happened. I'm old enough to remember it. So when the game was actually being played late at night, my parents were at it, they went to a party or something. I was out in my Superman pajamas with my rollerblades, a homemade stick that my dad had made out of plywood, and a blue plastic ball, skating around the subdivision, dreaming of playing ice hockey. Of course, I had never skated on ice in my life. So as a kid from North Carolina, to have my son involved in ice hockey opened my eyes to this wonderful sport that I really didn't know anything about other than people chasing each other with sticks. I didn't get it. So once my kid got into it, I fell in love with the sport itself. And then I started asking myself questions. Well, what would it look like if Concordia played hockey? And that led to a bigger discussion and a full all-out process. I mean, to add ice hockey took us 6 months, as opposed to adding lacrosse, which took us 6 minutes, right? So that process took a long time. But that's the impetus was me being involved with it with my kid and asking that question, what does Concordia hockey look like? And I met with the AD at Marion at the time and at MSOE at the time, and I called a lot of people out east to get budget projections and numbers, and that's how it kind of came about.
And speaking of your son, I understand for his birthday you guys had a great trip out to Nashville.
Well, so my oldest son started out his junior career with the St. Louis Junior Blues, and I went down to see him, and my dad and my little brother came up, and we all met, and we took Ty to a St. Louis Blues game. Well, my little one didn't know anything about it, but my wife, being my wife, decided that was inherently unfair, so we have to make it up to the little one, so we're going to take him to Nashville to see a Nashville Predators game. And he likes the Vegas Golden Knights, and he likes the Nashville Predators. And so next thing I know, I'm on a plane going to Nashville because on the scale of equity between the kids, that was how you righted the wheels of injustice.
So I'm guessing football is still your top sport, but is hockey right there? Is it close, like 1A, 1B as far as favorite sports that you follow, that you like to watch?
Coach Brunner would tell you I'm an ice hockey person because she thinks I put ice hockey above basketball, but that's not what's happened. Many people don't know this, but my actual favorite sport as a kid was basketball.
Okay.
I wanted to be the point
coached
guard.
Basketball.
1 year, yeah. I don't know if you call it coaching. I was on the bus. I grew up wanting to be the point guard for Carolina basketball. I wanted to play for Dean Smith. But the reality set in that wasn't going to happen, and I was a better football player anyway. So football is where I ended up, and I do love the game of football. I still love football. I miss the X's and O's. I'm watching what's happening in the NFL and all these creative things that are going on. So I do love football, but I do play ice hockey year-round. And playing is a bad term. I dress up in the stuff, and I stand on my skates for 3 leagues year-round. And I'm not very good. I don't skate very well. I got good hands, though. I got good mitts. I can pass. I can shoot. I just don't skate really well. If I could skate, I'd be good.
I want to end this segment quickly by asking you, you look at the landscape of the athletic department. Okay, 32 programs right now. Are you happy at 32 right now? Could we be seeing a 33rd, 34th, and so on and so forth in the future?
Number 33, 34, 35 are in the pile on my desk. So, we all are charged with trying to grow enrollment, and I think my job is critical to that mission. And so the short answer is yes, in a word, yes. I'm not going to break any ground here today or start any rumors, but do I believe that we'll be at 32 in 18 months? No, probably not.
We come back, we will wrap up our conversation with the athletic director, Dr. Rob Barnhill, as we continue on our final edition here in 2018 of the Falcon Focus podcast. Welcome back to the Falcon Focus podcast, wrapping up the 2018 season worth of podcasts here on Facebook Live, and again, archived on CWFalcons.com. You can download the audio thanks to Podbean, listen through iTunes, and talking with the Director of Athletics, Dr. Rob Barnhill, and wrapping up our final segment here with the AD. And you talk about coaching and then becoming an athletic director, and for a while you wore both hats. Could you do that today? I mean, I'm sure it was challenging back then where, I'm sure you were accused of, you favorite football because you're coaching football and you're not giving enough attention to this sport or that. Could you get away with that today? Is it more challenging now with so many more sports and so many more obligations?
Yeah, you and I off camera were just laughing about the old press box. And I remember the day that I realized it may be time. We were playing Maranatha in football, and the scoreboard and the PA system up in the press box wasn't working, and the down marker on the field was broken. So I grabbed a screwdriver and I fixed the down marker. Then they told me about the press box problem, so I ran upstairs. I'm on my hands and knees underneath the score table. The ball is being kicked off, so the game's happening. We're getting the ball. So I told the guys, listen, just run trap until I get back down here, okay? So I'm upstairs fixing stuff. The game's going on, and then I realize, you're kind of being pulled in a lot of different directions here, Rob. But could you do it today? Yeah, I could do it. But the reality would be it wouldn't be A work for either one. If you could pull off a B for both at the same time, that'd be a miracle. You could do it, but it'd be really difficult.
Do you still find yourself kind of coaching while you're watching from the sidelines or up in the press box?
Yeah, and that's in all sports. Unfortunately for the football guys, I know more about football, or at least I would argue that. I know more about football than I know about the rest of the things. But I do. I care about all of our programs, and I'm not deflecting. I'm being serious. I care as much about our cheerleading team as I do our football team, about our hockey team as our shooting team. If we're going to put the uniform on, A, I want to win. B, I want to do it right. And C, I want us to be as competitive as we possibly can be. That's why I'm in this job. People ask me, what do you do for a living? Well, I'm Smokey the Bear, right? I put out fires. No one ever comes to my office with solutions. No one. They bring problems. They hurl them in there like grenades. So that's what I like about the job. It's constantly moving, and there's competition, and there's winning and losing.
Of course, there's always a time to reflect, too, as we wrap up 2018. So as you look back at the last 12 months, how would you kind of summarize the state of affairs here in Concordia Athletics?
I think we're in a great place. We're so far removed from where you and I what we remember and where we were. But there's also another universe out there for us. I mean, we still have so far to go. So it's fun to sit around and reflect on how far we've come and sit around and pat ourselves on the back and say, hey, we're doing really well. But to me, that's short-sighted, and I don't want to live in that world. Mm-hmm. I want to be in that world over there, which says, we're winning championships and everything, and our facilities are top-notch and better than what everybody else has, and the kids that we're bringing in here could compete possibly at a level higher. That's what drives me every day to get up, is the thought of what's next and what's out there. As happy as I am where we are, and I do believe we're in a great place. We've got good people. Our sports medicine team is top-notch. Our strength and conditioning staff's top-notch. The academics here are top-notch. I mean, the support that we get, I think we're in a really great place. It's a great time to be a Falcon. But there's more out there.
Now, with that being said, let me just wrap it up by asking you, is there one thing, though, that you look at least as of now, in 17, 18 years into the job, that you say, I'm most proud of this? This is, if this is how it ends, this is my claim to fame. This is what I'm most proud of as being the AD of Concordia.
I think my greatest accomplishment, our greatest accomplishment, is the culture that we've created. When I came here, we didn't have an athletic department, and we didn't have an athletic culture because A, there were only 5 people, and B, the other 12 were all external people that you never saw one another. And now we do have departmental culture, and we do have departmental expectations, and we kind of have one heartbeat. So if I were to look back and say that's the one thing I'm most proud of, is being here when that culture was established, and then watching it grow and thrive.
Well, Dr. Barnhill, it's always a pleasure. We could do this for an hour, a couple hours. I mean, some great stories, but continued success. Looking forward to what's ahead for Concordia Athletics, and all the best in 2019. All
right, man. Thank you so much.
That is the Director of Athletics, Dr. Rob Barnhill, here on the Falcon Focus podcast. And again, this wraps up our editions here in 2018. We'll be back with you after 3 weeks off for the holidays. We'll come to you on Tuesday, January the 8th. We'll be live here from the CUW cafeteria from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Live on Facebook Live, archived on CUWFalcons.com. Of course, if you download the audio, thanks to Podbean, and listen through iTunes, you could go back and go through the archives from the entire 2018 portion of our podcast so far. Now, as far as Falcon Athletics go, again, things are kind of quiet right now as the semester comes to a close. Students right now focused on exam week, but the men's ice hockey team, they will be in action coming up on Wednesday. They will be at Marion. The two teams will drop the puck coming up at 8 p.m. Then coming up on Saturday, you have men's basketball also making the trip up to Fond du Lac. The Falcons taking on the Sabres. That's going to be a 4:15 tip in that conference matchup. Wrestling is in action. They get the opportunity to go to Las Vegas, Nevada for the Desert Duels. That coming up on Monday, the 17th of December. And then right back here on campus, men's and women's basketball coming your way on Wednesday, December the 19th. If you cannot be inside the John Book Fieldhouse in person, we'll have the two-game broadcast for you via the Falcon Athletic Network, all beginning with women's basketball. They take on UW-Whitewater in non-conference play at 6 p.m., and then men's basketball has a conference matchup, tip time at 8:15 against Illinois Tech. And so, again, that's next Wednesday, December 19th, Whitewater, Illinois Tech, women's and men's basketball on the Falcon Athletic Network. Thanks, one and all. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We'll do it again January 8th. Thanks for joining us for this edition of the Falcon Focus Podcast.